Hi everyone, this is Chad with Function Through Fitness, and today I'm going to walk John through how to stretch out his hip flexors. Because if you remember watching our video the other day on burpees, we talked about if you're having a hard time executing the burpee, sometimes lower back plays into it. So we want to show you a stretch that is effective to start to loosen up the hip flexors, to allow you to be able to do a dynamic exercise like that. So first thing we have to do is we're going to do a kneeling hip flexor stretch. So at home, you can use your bottom stair at home, and then I would suggest putting a pillow underneath your knee just for a little bit of cushion so you're not going against like hardwood or tile flooring that you may have at home. So John, I'm going to have you place your right knee on that pad. Left foot is going to be directly in front of him. And if you are using a step at home, I'm going to have John flex his foot towards his knee like this. So one of the things that we're going to show you on how to stretch the hip flexor is first talk about what the hip flexor can do. So if the hip flexor is tight, it normally will pull a person forward, so he's going to be in a lean forward position. So in order for him to be able to get into an effective stretch, he needs to be able to keep his posture more upright. And to be able to do that, we need to get that pelvis into a neutral position, because if the hip flexor is tight, it's pulling your pelvis in a downward position. So we want to work on trying to get that pelvis neutral. So John, you get your pelvis into a neutral position, so you're going to tilt underneath you, and you want to squeeze your glute to get a good effective stretch on this hip flexor, this psoas muscle. And then next I'm going to have John reach his hand as tall as he can towards the ceiling and get a nice stretch. So John, where do you feel this stretch?
Quad, psoas, and then a little bit in the lat.
Yep. So we want to be able to get a nice long line all the way from the tip of his fingers all the way down to his knee. And you're going to hold this static stretch for 30 seconds. And then when he's done, you'll bring his hand down. And John, put your hands on the floor and then switch your legs around. And that's just an easy way to be able to just switch sides, because you want to be able to do both sides of the stretch. Same thing, this side of the stretch will be another 30 seconds. If you have any questions, please feel free and contact us through email, phone number, text message. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more videos, and thank you for watching. Okay, so now we're going to continue on with another dynamic hip flexor stretch to be able to get John ready to do a dynamic move like your burpee. So John, what you're going to do is you're going to take a big step forward with your right leg. Both hands are going to go flat on the floor on the inside of your leg. And then if you notice, from shoulder all the way down to John's ankle is in a nice long line here. And to get your good effective hip flexor stretch, John, squeeze this glute, and you're going to hold that for 2 seconds. Take your right hand, put it on the outside of your right leg, lean back, come back into that right leg, go for a nice hamstring and calf stretch. Using your glute of your right leg, I want you to pull yourself out of that stretch and then come forward. And then you just go right into your left leg. You do the same exact thing. So both hands flat on the floor inside the leg, squeezing the glute of your right leg. Left hand goes on the outside of your leg. You're going to lean back into there. Then pull with your left glute to come out of that stretch. So now I'm going to show you what not to do. So John, I'm going to have you come back here. So some things that I see people do when they do the stretch, and they're tight in different areas besides your hip flexors and hamstrings, is, John, when you take your step forward, put both hands flat on the floor, you let your right knee fall out to the side and it drifts off to the side. So when you're doing this stretch, you want to pay attention to also what your knee is doing, because it's falling out here. In order to be able to use that glute when he pulls himself out, he needs to be able to keep his knee directly above this ankle, okay? So then right hand is going to come on the outside, draw back into your stretch, pull with that glute of the right leg. And if that knee was falling to the outside, it would be much more challenging to pull with your glute, and you'd end up using your lower back to come out of that stretch. And then John, take your step forward with the left leg. And then if you come over here, put both hands flat on the floor. And then John, I want you to come out of this stretch the wrong way. So do your stretch, bring your left hand on the outside, come back, bring your right foot right next to your left leg again, and then you stand up out of that stretch. So We're going to have one more video to do for your hip flexors, but this type of stretch is good to do before you do a dynamic movement like your burpee, hip, mountain climbers, any other type of exercises. Okay, the third and last exercise for a hip flexor stretch, your psoas, is just a walking lunge. So if your Spiderman is too hard to get into, you're not able to get that low into your hip, and you feel like it's causing back issues, we can take you into another regression of how to do a dynamic hip flexor stretch. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a walking lunge with a hand overhead. So John, you're going to take your right leg, step forward. You're going to bring your back knee down, so you're 90 degrees in that front leg, 90 degrees in that back leg. This hand is going to come up overhead. You're going to squeeze that glute. You're going to hold for 2 seconds and use your right leg to pull you out of that stretch, and then go into your left leg. Same thing, 90 at the front, 90 in the back. Hand goes up to the sky. He's squeezing his right glute right now to get a good hip flexor stretch, and he's going to use his left glute to step out of this. So now, John, step back here. And things you want to pay attention to when you're doing your walking lunge is when you take your step, you want to walk 2 straight lines. You don't want to cross the midline of your body. So you don't want your right leg to go in front of the middle of your body. So show them what a bad one will look like. So you're crossing your midline, the knee buckles in, the chest comes down towards the knee. Again, if the hip flexor is tight, it's going to pull you down into this position, and you're not going to get in a good stretch. So he's got to bring himself up. Legs have to be in proper position. And down there, pull yourself forward. If you're leaning forward at the waist and you're bending the back, bringing your chest down towards the knee, it's going to be hard to activate that glute to pull you out of it. So again, you end up using your lower back to do the stretch.